Hi, how you doing today? It's just Jess here. Hope you're having a good day, and today, yes, welcome to my Spider-Man No Way Home spoiler review discussion. If you take a look around, I am in a new studio. I got a new mic that I'm using for the very first time, so please excuse if there's like a white noise background. I'm still trying to figure it out. However, if you're here to this channel, if you've been following me for a while, yeah, this is the new studio that I've been trying to work on. I got a new mic, a new PC, and yeah, we're ready and to talk about Spider-Man No Way Home. So just warning you, this is a spoiler discussion. I do want to say I'm sorry for the volume, for the noise. I will try to get it better. I'll try to make it work better in post-production. So just to let you know, this is a new studio. And yeah, so we got my Starbucks coffee, so we're gonna get right into it. Okay, so Spider-Man No Way Home picks up right after Far From Home left off. You guys probably remember when Far From Home, Rey Mysterio was like, Spider-Man's name is Peter Parker. And then he goes on the ledge with MJ. She's like, oh, I'm never doing that again. Well, he's on top of the ledge. Jake Jonah Jameson is awesome in this movie. He's still the same character that Sam Raimi Spider-Man, if he grew up in 2004, 2006, and 2007. Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3 with Tobey Maguire. He's still the same person that he does in the news outlet. He's like, Spider-Man's menace. We need to attack Spider-Man. He definitely still dislikes Spider-Man, but he still has the same charisma to the role. So everyone finds out who Peter Parker is, and then it just goes into like a snowball of events. Like one happens, this after this. After everyone finds out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, he seeks out Doctor Strange's help. But then Peter Parker, during the spell, obviously he's like, oh, but then I want MJ to know, I want Ned to know, I want my aunt to know, I want Happy. And then obviously Doctor Strange is like, you messed me up 6 times. And then all these villains come out to play. He's like, some of them glass. I don't know. I think Doctor Strange was like, some of them got through the cracks. Be careful. And then that's when we get to see all the villains. I don't want to say it was Peter's fault that messes up the spell, because Doctor Strange, it felt like, I don't know, Doctor Strange is older, more wiser. So maybe he had some things like safeguards in place, but he did have a lot of respect for Peter Parker, because when Peter Parker went to go Doctor Strange, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but it felt like Doctor Strange really wanted to help out Peter. He's like, please, Peter, we've saved half the universe together. So I really like that dynamic, because when we saw Doctor Strange first meeting Peter Parker, he didn't really like, he was like, what is he, your war? Because Tony Stark was there. So I'm really happy that Doctor Strange was willing to help Peter Parker, you know? I was really happy that he did that. I was like, yeah, you know, let's go. So the first villain is the Doc Ock. Doc Ock villain, I love how that was the first like evil villain, and it took place in the highway or like the top. And then Doc Ock is like, hello, Peter. And then Peter has no idea who he is. He's just like, hello. And he's like, your new suit won't save you. And that really battle was cool. Cars flipping, high octane action. It was really thrilling to see that. And then obviously how Peter Parker uses the nanotech to subdue Doc Ock, because Doc Ock, once he throws Peter, you know how he comes with his nano legs from Tony Stark's Alfred Molina. He's like, looks like we got some competition. And that was so cool, because the nanotechnology transferred into Doc Ock, and then Peter Parker, it was like syncing a new Bluetooth. That was pretty cool. He's like, deet, 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 and he controlled him. And then he goes into this cave. And see, this is pretty cool, because it already shows us that the Lizard from Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Andrew Garfield is in this lair. Okay, so I'm like, okay, so Peter Parker has to get all these villains into Doctor Strange's lair with the force field and shield, that he's like, okay, we need to take these villains into this, like, I want to say prison, and then send them back to their own timelines. And Lizard's already there. Doc Ock is there. Obviously he can't move because he has a nanotech. Okay, so after that he has to find the other enemies that are from the other Spider-Man's universe because of the spell that went wrong. So the next villain after he fights Doc Ock, and by the way, when he gets transported back into Doctor Strange's lair, we get a glimpse of Green Goblin. So Doc Ock is like Norman Osborn. He's like, ha 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 ha. And by the way, Green Goblin, we have a little bit to talk to him about, because Willem Dafoe, I saw another movie, Nightmare Alley, that he was also like in the same weekend. And Willem Dafoe, I just want to say, he was like the most villainous of villains in this movie. It made it seem like the Green Goblin was the overall evil guy, and we'll talk about more of that in a bit. So after that, he has to fight Electro, which played by Jamie Foxx is really good to see him come back and reprise his role, because when he first meets Electro's like, Jamie Foxx is still like his own skin color, which I really loved, and electricity was yellow. So it was awesome, because I've seen that in the comics as well as the video games. I really thought that was a nice touch, because I'm like, you guys finally got that character right. I don't know, maybe they took some liberty decisions having the character blue. Having him with his own skin color plus the added touch of yellow really was awesome, because I was like, yes, this is like the true form of Electro. I feel like one thing that Jamie Foxx too, he's like, I knew there was something different about this universe, the power. And then Sandman's there too in the same fight. Sandman's like, hey, Spider-Man, and then he's like, you're not my Spider-Man. And they talk, and he's like, did you kill him? And then they're all back into Doctor Strange's lair in the bottom. I thought that was pretty cool. However, I did write down, I'm like, Sandman is still emotional than before. He still wants to get back to his daughter. So I like that didn't change his character from like the first installments of the Sam Raimi films. Electro, throughout the whole movie, I don't know if you guys caught this or feel this type of way, I really felt like he was OP at times. I don't know if you guys felt that way too. I'm just like, wow, like he gets Stark's arc reactor later during the film. I felt like the lizard guy, Dr. Connors, had the most little screen time and like the most like least like, abilities. I mean, I get it, he's a strong lizard, but it just felt like they just needed him there, you know, because it was from Andrew Garfield's. And I get it, Electro's, but he just had more like on-screen presence, especially because I saw it in IMAX. Electro, Jamie Foxx, when he talks, he's like, I can hear the whole theater. The surround sound was amazing. It was like Spider-Man's like, I'm gonna get you, Spider-Man. And the whole theater in an IMAX screen, I just felt like the sound was top notch, especially for IMAX, because everything that I feel like in IMAX, the way he sounded, knowing the power of the different universes, just sounds different in a surround sound in IMAX. If you guys caught that, Jamie Foxx was like, I wish there was a black Spider-Man somewhere in the universe. And then some of my theater members were like, Miles. Once all of them get to the lair, including Green Goblin, and it's awesome that Green Goblin, once Aunt May finds him, he tells Peter, he's like, no, you need to save them, you need to help him, like, you know, this is that. So Green Goblin, all of them are in the lair, all of them. The Lizard, Doc Ock, Electro, as well as Sandman and Green Goblin all get behind that shield. And I wrote down, I love the banter between the characters, knowing that some of them died and like what happened to them. So Sandman was like, he's like, Spider-Man, you guys died fighting Spider-Man. A few months, it was you, Green Goblin, that got impaled by your own glider. And then a few months later, Doc Ock. And it's cool because Electro found out the lizard guy, and this humor and banter between the characters of the evil past Spider-Man villains, I thought that was really awesome because their character dialogue between each universes of the evil villains, they couldn't come to fathom that they actually died fighting Spider-Man, even though right now it seemed like the Sinister Five because we're still missing another person. It's just really nice to see like their banter between the shields when they're in the bottom of Doctor Strange's lair. I'm sorry if this review is like all over the place, but we are just talking spoilers. So being in an IMAX screen, it also felt like his laugh and his presence on screen did not miss a beat from the Sam Raimi films. So Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin, like he still acted more evil. Now, I'm not really a fan of the new look they gave him in this movie. Maybe they just wanted to like reinvent the character, but in this film, I feel like it's more street style. I mean, yeah, he's in a new universe, but I really liked his old character, like all suit up. So after all the enemies are in Doctor Strange's lair, Peter he has a decision to actually save them. But everyone else, especially Doctor Strange, thinks that they should just go back to their universe and just die. So once they're all in the lair, Doctor Strange and Peter Parker fight. And it's awesome because first it takes place right outside New York, but then Doctor Strange takes it to a whole new level with like, I don't know, he just does some magic stuff. And like, if you guys seen it, I was like, whoa. Especially in an IMAX theater, you see so many things like Doctor Strange and Peter Parker fighting through different dimensions, or like the mirror world. As the way that Peter outsmarted Doctor Strange, that was Peter Parker, not really Spider-Man, because he's like, oh, this is all geometry. So he's like, oh, I can outsmart Doctor Strange using geometry. And it's cool because he just like dangles him there. He's like, oh, you're just gonna be here and I'll take care of the rest. So then Peter Parker comes to the real life. I don't want to say he defeats Doctor Strange because Doctor Strange comebacks at the end, but that was really good because I didn't know how long Doctor Strange was gonna be in the movie, and I certainly didn't want him to take away from Peter Parker like screen time. Like, yes, it's great that Marvel is putting all these characters together because it's not like before where they could just have like Captain America, Thor, or Iron Man. Like, it's cool that they have them, but they're doing a good job of it. You know, Doctor Strange has good amount of screen time. It doesn't take away from Peter Parker. You know how Peter Parker, we just described that he wants to help him out and not everything goes according to plan because it is Spider-Man. First, he cures Doc Ock because he's smart, you know, so Doc Ock is like, I don't hear voices, everything is fine. But then when Peter Parker starts working on Green Goblin, when Doc Ock is like, are you ready to be normal, Osmond? You ready to be fine? I don't know about you guys, but when Peter Parker was sitting down and there was like a new Spider-Man tingle or his spider sense, the way, I don't know how you guys felt about it, but when I was in the theater, it was like, I was like, what happened? Did like something really bad happen? Like, was there an explosion? Like, remember he was sitting down and then he stands up and he's like, whoa. And the camera, the sound was like, it just felt like he was drunk. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I knew something bad was gonna happen. And so he goes to the living room and all the enemies are there. And then he's like this, and then he starts, and then he does at Green Goblin. It was such a monumental like moment in the film because my theater was like, whoa. Knowing that Green Goblin was the evil guy, he's like, and oh my God, Willem Dafoe in that awkward voice, he's like, that Spidey sense you got there. It's just like, oh, I love like these moments in this film. There was a lot of good moments throughout the film, and that was one of them because the way the movie portrayed that spider sense during that scene where they're in the condo, when all the villains are there trying to get cured, it's like the spider sense from the other scenes in the other movies where we've seen it, but this took like a new level. Like, this this showed us that level of threat was like significantly times greater, because there was a lot of drama and dialogue action, dramatic in that scene between the characters of the enemies that Spider-Man is trying to like save, as well as like the tension and the variety of the evilness of Green Goblin influenced the Spidey sense of Peter Parker during that scene. I wrote down like it was such a great excitement of cinematography because it reveals the enemy was still Green Goblin, because I literally thought for a second, I was like, you know what, maybe Green Goblin can be saved, but that scene just solidified that he's truly evil without having the serum at the end of the movie being in his like body. But it's just I don't know if you guys felt it, but I did feel some type of way, like when Spider-Man was like pshing, and then Green Goblin was like, that Spidey sense you got there, that was such homage to the movie. I commend the movie for doing that, because it showed us a new level of the Spidey sense that we already know, but takes what we already know and like doubles it to like a new level. And then they start battling together, and May's in there, she's trying to leave, and that scene when Green Goblin, everyone else, like they leave, Sandman, Electro, Green Goblin versus Spider-Man, and kind of the help from like the Lizard, Green Goblin just overpowers Peter like to the next level. Like that scene when they're fighting in the condo, like, and Green Goblin doesn't even have his glider. That's the thing, like that whole scene, the whole fighting sequence, that action scene was, it was beautiful, because it shows that Peter Parker was like, I don't want to say he was losing, but he kind of did lost that battle because Green Goblin just overpowered him. Like, I'm just like, wow. And throughout this whole movie, it's very emotional driven of what it really means to be Peter Parker with like cause and effect. Peter Parker, Tom Holland, is really solidifying like, wow, being Spider-Man is gonna be harder than what he originally probably thought. And then we get into one of the best moments, Aunt May's death. When she got hit with the glider and then the bomb, I literally thought, because I was gonna go to the bathroom and I was walking, and then I heard like everyone was like, oh, for some reason a lot of people knew she was gonna die at that moment, but I was like, oh, she looks fine because she just stood up. But then when I knew something bad was gonna happen, was when she sat back down. She was like, Peter, let me just take a breather. She was telling Peter, she's like, no, Peter, with great power comes great responsibility. And I love how she made that line that we all love. She made it into her because she emphasized responsibility. Like, she didn't say it just like the other movies. She said it in her own way, and then she died. Like, Aunt May's death, it didn't hit me like the way I kind of wanted it to. I know a lot of people said they shed some tears. Unfortunately, it didn't. Now, let's say if MJ died, that would have hit me, because and we'll talk about that scene later on. But when she died, I was just like, wow. I just, Aunt May dying was like, we've never seen an Aunt May die in the other movie, not Tobey Maguire's or Andrew Garfield's. So for this movie to have that, it's just like, wow. Because it's like, Aunt May dying, that means Peter is on his own. That means, to my knowledge, he doesn't have family, you know, because Aunt May was like his aunt. His parents died. And then the movie doesn't explore that he has other family. And then Spider-Man goes into this rampage, just wants to kill Green Goblin. And this is where we get to my favorite part of the scene. Remember when Peter Parker is in the rooftop scene, when the other Spider-Man are telling MJ, like, where would he go? You know, and they're talking about their favorite places to go to think. And first, MJ and Ned talk to him in like the dark in the rooftop scene. And then the screen looks into the top where they see the two other Spider-Mans and they come down. And that scene was such beautifully done with amazing chemistry between the characters. And this is the first time we get to see all the three Spider-Man Peter Parker talking. Andrew Garfield's and Tobey Maguire's are there to like help him, you know, basically during this dark time because of what they've been through. Because it talks about the great moment with responsibility with Uncle Ben and Gwen. It was my most favorite part of the movie. When Andrew Garfield was telling Peter Parker, Tom Holland, about like, don't go into the rampage, like, cause he couldn't save Gwen. And I love how he's like, I lost Gwen. She was my MJ. Peter Parker, Tom Holland was like, you guys don't understand what I'm going through. And of course they did. If anything, I would argue that Andrew Garfield's MJ would hurt more, because I'm not trying to like distinguish love, but personally for me, if I lost my girlfriend, that's more different, because with a girlfriend, you get all like the sexual tension, the love, the affection. I'm not trying to say that that's better than like a family relative, but to me, the way that I am, I would be more heartbroken if I lost my girl than a family member. Like, I'm sorry. I know a lot of people are going to look at me like, damn, like, I can't believe he said that. But think about it. For me, just a person, for me, like if I lost my girl and if I lost a family member, I would probably die more knowing that my girl's lost. And the way that Andrew Garfield said that he lost Gwen, which was his MJ, which is beautifully done, because he's the only one in this trio of Spider-Man that doesn't have a regular MJ. Tobey Maguire does, as well as Tom Holland. But when Andrew Garfield was like, I lost my MJ, you could see it in his voice, in his face, that he still regrets that. He still misses that. He still beats himself up that he couldn't save her. And it's stupid because we never got closure for the other characters, because they were going to make Spider-Man 4, but then that movie was scrapped. And then Andrew Garfield only has 2 Spider-Man's movie in his belt. And to me, I personally still love Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. That's my favorite incarnation of Spider-Man. Now we get into the big fight, the last fight, the 3-on-3. So after they mentor Peter, they go into the fight with 3-on-3. And they're in the Statue of Liberty, I love the banter between the 3 Spider-Man trying to help each other other out, just trying to like know about each other. Like Andrew Garfield's like, so what do you guys do? You know, my back. That scene was cool when Tobey Maguire's like, my back, because I grew up watching also Spider-Man, and then it's like, my back, and then he's like hugging him. It's kind of like humping him, and he's like, we gotta work on that self-doubt. Like, you are amazing. And then I don't know if anyone else caught that, because Andrew Garfield's movies were called The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. So bear with me. So if you go on Google, Andrew Garfield is The Amazing Spider-Man. So when Tobey Maguire was like, you are amazing, that was a nod to us, because he was telling Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, you are amazing, just like the name of his movie, The Amazing Spider-Man, because not Tobey Maguire or Tom Holland's Spider-Man is called The Amazing Spider-Man. You get what I'm trying to say? So it's like, he's like, we need to work on that self like talk. You are amazing. Yeah, because he is amazing. And it's so cool that they are all talking about knowledge about like, and Tom Holland's like, we're interested, because they had to make their own web, and then Tobey Maguire comes here as the OG, as like the father of the Spider-Man. He's like, ching ching ching. I really love that his webs were like fluid from his body, all the humor banter, and Tom Holland's like, does it come out anywhere else? Web blocks, like, I think like little kids are probably not gonna catch up on that, but adults will, because when Tom Holland says, oh hey, like, do you think when Tom Holland was like, does it come out anywhere else? I'm gonna be honest with you, and I'm not trying to get like banned or anything, but I was already thinking like private parts, or maybe, you know, I was like, so that was cool. So the last fight, 3-on-3, is like amazing action. Everyone shows up their skills, and there's more banter with the Avengers scene. If you saw that, they don't know how to work as a team, but then they do. Electro's there, Sandman's there, Lizard's there, all three Spider-Man is there just to fight, just to cure them. And Doc Ock comes at the end. One thing too, and this is probably my second favorite, I don't watch trailers to movies that I know I'm gonna go see, but it's awesome to see that Andrew Garfield caught MJ. Once I saw that MJ was falling and that Tom Holland was going to grab her, I'm like, oh my god, like hopefully she doesn't die, because that would have made me cry. And then Green Goblin comes and like takes him away. As soon as I see Andrew Garfield, everyone in my theater was like, oh, and it was exactly the way that movie, the second movie of Andrew Garfield, was playing. So MJ was like falling like this, and it was all in slow motion. Andrew Garfield went after her and he caught her. And then when he caught her, he's like, are you okay? She's like, yeah, are you okay? And then Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man was like crying. He's like, yeah. And I saw all the movies on Friday before watching this one, and I'm telling you, that moment with Gwen really, I remember back in 2014 when Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out, and I saw it in the same theater of AMC Niles 12. I saw it and I cried in 2014 when I saw Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. And now seeing this moment redeem himself, it's like giving him closure, because remember, he only had 2 movies, and at the end of the movie he was still like crying over Gwen. Like, you don't move on from that. It's like your love of your life. I don't know, I just really love that he caught her, and that was an homage, because like I said, it gave him closure. And that was such beautifully done, that Andrew Garfield was the one to call MJ, because he didn't want Tom Holland to go through what he did, losing his girl because he couldn't save her, you know. That's why he's like, I lost my Gwen. And so now I feel like Andrew Garfield Spider-Man could move on from that moment. I know this review is getting longer, but there's a lot that we have to cover. And then Doc Ock coming up as a good guy, I thought that was gonna happen. I'm like, we haven't seen Doc Ock fight since the beginning of the movie, so for him to come up, and first when he attacked the two Spider-Man 2 and 3, because that's where the names, I was like, no, Doc Ock, like, what are you doing? Like, come on. But then I was like, no, there's gotta be some hope, because at the end of the Sam Raimi films with the Tobey Maguire, he did redeem himself. He's like, no, I got it. So then when he gave Electro his like thing to be normal, I was like, yes, he's coming back. And this movie never loses the emotional connections with the other Spider-Man, with their respective Spider-Man that carries into the film. So when I said it was an emotional scene, they're all emotional, because during the end of the movie, when Tobey Maguire talks to Doc Ock, you can hear the same soundtrack from those installments of the film back in 2002, 2004, and 2007. So when Doc Ock's like, you've all grown up, and then Peter Parker is like trying to do better, that's what he said before in those films. Go watch the scene on YouTube. That's what he says. He's like, I'm trying to do better in those films, and now he says that here with the same music accompanied with the same score and soundtrack. There's a lot of years that passed from 2002 to right now 2021, and when Doc Ock says you've all grown up, it's like they knew that time has passed. So I was like, whoa, that is so cool. Even though like we're doing multiverses, they still acknowledge that Tobey Maguire like is obviously older now. You know, he's the one with the most experience. He's the one the most like Spider-Man-y, you know? And I love that how they did that. But now we're getting towards the end. The last fight with Goblin. Tom Holland is at a rage right now, so he's very mad. He's like, you killed Aunt May. And when he did that punch on the floor, boom, and then IMAX screen, everyone was like, oh my gosh. And the way that battle was more like heart, there was so much heart to it. Barely any music, just the sound effects of the boom, the fighting, the slashing. He's like, ah! And when Goblin was losing and Peter Parker wanted to kill him, he was going to kill him with his glider, which is funny because they told him that the other Spider-Man was going to kill him with his glider. It was Tobey Maguire that stopped it. He's like, no, no, no. And oh my gosh, he got stabbed. Yeah, Tobey Maguire got stabbed and I thought he was going to die. I was like, no way. But then they played it off. He's like, oh no, I get stabbed all the time. I thought he was going to die. And I was like, whoa. Finally, we see Tom Holland go into his rage mode because I've never seen him that mad before. And he really was like, he was just so full of anger that when he was fighting Green Goblin, he literally wanted to kill him. A lot of people are saying that this is the best Spider-Man, and I can see that, but you guys gotta keep in mind that without this Spider-Man being the best, I mean, okay, look, it maybe could be the best, but it had to take those other films to exist for this movie to be the best, because it did get all these other characters and villains into this movie. So throughout the years, people be like, oh, this works for Spider-Man, yes and no. So I get it that it's the best, but you can't just have this the best because it does use from other movies, such as the Sam Raimi films and the Andrew Garfields. So yes, I get it that people saying it is the best Spider-Man. I'm gonna be honest with you, personally, I feel like this is the best Spider-Man in the MCU, but still not the best Spider-Man overall. Actually, you know what? I do want to say this is the best Spider-Man for me. I feel like, even though Spider-Man 2 comes really close to it. In order for this to be the best Spider-Man, the other movies have to exist to be fully realized, because of the events that happen in those films happen in this film as well. Like they grab some villains and the Spider-Man in that film. So how can this be the best if those films didn't exist? And now we get to the end where Peter chooses the whole world to forget about him. He goes to Doctor Strange. He's like, you know what? Make everyone forget, because otherwise the spell's not gonna work. The multiverse is gonna be ruined. And Doctor Strange, I don't know if you guys caught this. He's like, just call me Steven. He's like, it still sounds weird, but did you see that tear in his eye? Like Doctor Strange, or maybe it was just a little bit watery, but Doctor Strange was like, he didn't want to forget Peter, because of course, dude, like Infinity War, Endgame, like all the banter, the laughing, the, you know, like family you love and you fight. Like Doctor Strange, if you remember that part, you see it again, Doctor Strange felt like he didn't want to forget Peter. Like it almost hurt him that he was going to forget Peter. Like it really did. He's like, if that's what you want, you know? And I'm just like, damn, like everyone. And then that heartbreaking moment with Ned and MJ, where MJ was like, I love you. That was, see, like I love romance, and that was the best romance with the music and the sunset. Like that was probably the most adult thing that Peter had done, Tom Holland. But with MJ, with Zendaya, it's like, so he chooses everyone forget, and like he kisses her, he says bye to Ned. That was the most heartbreaking scene for me in the whole film. It really hit me emotionally, because it's like he's telling the girl of his life, and MJ was like, no, I don't want to forget. Because think about it, these are 3 movies that they've been like events. They went to different locations throughout the 3 films, and MJ, like, she grown to love Peter, especially in the second movie. Like they have a lot of screen time. That's where they have their first kiss. That's where they have like the most connections. And now in this, like MJ just forgot like a bunch of her time with Peter, and she's like, you better tell me when you come back. So at the end of the scene, he goes to the coffee shop that MJ works, and he chooses not to tell her, even though he promised her that he will, mainly because he sees that they're happy. He's like, you know what, these guys are in a good place, it'll come up eventually. And honestly, to me, their romance or their love is so monumental to this movie that Marvel, I would bet $100 that in the future installments of Spider-Man Tom Holland, that somehow Zendaya is gonna remember him. Either he saves her again, but somehow it's gonna remember, because it's like, there's no way, because to be honest with you, romance is a part of always Peter Parker's life, Tobey Maguire's and Andrew Garfield's. And it's like, wow, like MJ and him like breaking up, and she is just so emotional that I really love that MJ did not want to forget Peter like that. And then when he sees her in the coffee shop and he chooses not to tell her, I took that as a way as Peter was like, wow, I'm making the most adult, mature decision, because he's putting not himself first anymore, he's putting them first, and he sees that they're okay. And like I said, there is going to be a way that she remembers him, because romance is a big part of these films, especially in any Spider-Man, and romance is a big part of my life, so hopefully they do come back. And honestly guys, this review has been long enough, but I appreciate you so much for sticking around. I probably would want to say more things when I like come off, but like I said, that romance really hit me on a next level. I love the MJ thing. I cried. I shed a tear, because that romance when they kissed is just, oh, you guys know I love romance. So honestly guys, that's gonna be everything for me today. I hope you have a great day, and let me know if you ever need anything. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing so you never miss a video. Maybe hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. Take care guys.